Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand. Available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Good evening, and don't adjust your screens. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Jeff Oliverio. This evening, we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet. I'm happy to be here tonight. This week we have coming up the National LGBTQ Task Force Gala on Saturday night, October 22nd at the Miami Beach Convention Center. I welcome everyone who's coming to our event to enjoy, share with your family and friends, and help us honor the heroes of the LGBTQ+ movement. Find out more information at taskforcegala.org. Now tonight, this is the world's, let's introduce our next anchor,
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Now, let's welcome Evyn Almanzar, a trans student at JP Taravella High School, where he recently started his sophomore year. He has been publicly speaking out as an advocate for mental health and queer student rights since the age of 12. A lover of writing and nature who often enjoys both at the same time, Evyn was a member of the Don't Say Gay rally last February, where he, on Queer News Tonight, said, "I want to make people hear us as a student body as well as members of the LGBTQ+ community and let them know how they can help." Welcome, Evyn.
Thank you. It's amazing to be back. Let's welcome our next anchor, Dr. Tai Houser. He's an associate professor of English and Humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time at international colleges in China, India, Spain, and Bolivia. Good evening, Dr. Tai.
Good evening, Evyn. It's nice to be here with all of you. Let's welcome Caridad Moro-Gronlier, the author of Tortillera, the winner of the TRP Southern Poetry Breakthrough Prize for Florida, published by Texas Review Press in the spring of 2021. She is also the author of Visionware, published by Finishing Line Press as part of its New Women's Voices series. She is a contributing editor for Grabbed, Poets and Writers Respond to Sexual Assault, Empowerment and Healing. And she's associate editor for Swim Every Day, an online daily poetry journal. Good evening, Caridad.
Why, thank you, Dr. Tai. Let's welcome anchor Buddy Frey. Buddy is a longtime South Florida resident. He enjoys our large, diverse community and supports many of our local nonprofit organizations like Julian's Fountain of Youth and the Stonewall National Library Museum. Welcome, Buddy.
Well, thank you. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, October 18th, 2022.
Now let's queer up politics. One of these women could be the U.S.'s first lesbian governor. Gubernatorial candidates Maura Healey and Tina Kotek are no strangers to political firsts. In 2009, Healey, who is now the Massachusetts Attorney General, led the nation's first successful challenge of the Defense of Marriage Act, a 1996 law that prohibited federal recognition of same-sex marriages. In 2014, she broke barriers again, becoming the nation's first out lesbian elected state attorney general. Nearly 3,000 miles west, Kotek became the country's first out lesbian Speaker of a state House of Representatives in 2013. She made history again by becoming Oregon's longest-serving House Speaker before stepping down in January to run for governor. This coming election day, these lesbian trailblazers could shatter glass ceilings once more, simultaneously becoming the first out lesbians ever elected governor in the United States. To achieve that, Healy, a Democrat, will have to get past Republican Jeff Deal, a former state representative endorsed by former President Donald Trump. If Healy wins, she'll also become her state's first elected female governor. For Kotek, who is also a Democrat, the odds are less promising. She not only faces Republican Christine Drazan, the former minority leader of the Oregon House, but also a third-party candidate, Betsy Johnson, who recent polling suggests is dividing Democratic voters. Well, I think we couldn't be more excited about seeing more representation of LGBTQ leaders in government. I think we get to reference my favorite website, the Victory Institute. I urge people to go to the Victory Institute and find out about the leaders across the country, not just here in Florida, that are running for office, and give them $1, give them $5, because we can see the attacks that are happening not only in Florida, are happening across the country, and it's very important that we get more representation in government.
Well, and this goes to a lot of what we talk about here, where we start small, start running in local elections, build yourself up, and as we begin to take more and more seats at the local level, we begin to get more national recognition and more national representation.
Absolutely. Everyone just keeps moving up the ranks, and that's exactly what we need. That's how we grow in power.
And we can start even at a local level, like school boards, because if we see a lot of the draconian rules that are coming down on us, starting with the Mothers of Liberty, who are stationed in Sarasota, they are foremost in trying to change things the way they've been done for a long time in counties that secured the rights for LGBTQ students way before any of them thought to even insert themselves in that sort of politics. So it's really important to keep an eye on every sort of election.
And it's important to build our network of support across any kind of lines, whether it be the African American community, the straight community, any ethnic group or political source that we can.
Yeah, the Victory Institute actually has an article about the school board representation, which of course we have a student here in our midst, and I just was asking, have you felt the changes that have come about within the schools, and what has been the impact?
Right. Luckily, in my school, I haven't seen much. I'm vice president of my school's VGSA. Awesome. So we still have that up and running. We still have certain things. And there are a lot of schools in Broward County that still have protection in place for LGBTQ plus youth. Like in the coming year, 2023, we're going to have a GSA summit, so where we all come together and we all get to just experience that sort of diversity. But I have friends at other schools that don't get that and don't get to have that safe space that we do. And I feel incredibly privileged to have that. And I just wish that the rest of our government could really see that and understand that it does have an effect on students. It raises their level of anxiety, it raises the rates of depression and suicidality, and drops their grades. And if schools want money, why do they want their grades dropping?
Yeah. I mean, the perspective is powerful, and I know that Safe Schools South Florida has been instrumental in leading a lot of the fight against the Don't Say Gay bill as well, and appreciate all your leadership being part of the GSA and fighting back against it. So
I feel incredibly lucky that I now get to have that safe space.
Great.
All right, now it's time to queer up trans rights. Talk show host Graham Norton leaves Twitter after an argument with TERF J.K. Rowling. The UK presenting royalty Graham Norton left Twitter soon after Harry Potter writer J.K. Rowling criticized him over comments about transgender people made in a recent interview. The row began after singer-songwriter Billy Bragg commented Norton for his position on trans rights made at the Cheltenham Literature Festival. Rowling, who was often clashed with trans activists on social media told Bragg that he was, quote, supporting rape and death threats by backing Norton, who appeared to have actually said very little to spark the controversy. When questioned on Rowling's position on trans rights, Norton said, quote, "When I'm asked about it, I become a part of it. My voice adds nothing to the discussion, and I'm sort of embarrassed that I'm somehow drawn into it. If people want to shine a light on those issues, then talk to trans people. Talk to the parents of trans kids, talk to doctors, talk to scientists, talk to someone who can illuminate in some way," end quote. However, in criticizing Bragg, Rowling wrote, quote, "Enjoying the recent spate of bearded men stepping confidently onto their soapboxes to define what a woman is and throw their support behind rape and death threats. You may mock, but take real bravery to come out as an Old Testament prophet," end quote. Neither Norton nor Bragg referenced rape or death threats in their statement. JK, you're making me sad more.
I'm confused. Is she equating herself with a First Testament prophet? That's pretty. That's a case of hubris right there.
Hubris isn't the word.
Is she? It's absolutely stunning and makes me very sad as an English teacher who has taught Harry Potter that she took what could have been a potential platform to elevate all children, as the tropes of her stories seem to imply.
Queer baiting.
And it's absolutely disheartening and appalling that she's come out in this way. And now, unfortunately, it's one less piece of work that I will ever be promoting, and that makes me sad.
It's said, too, that this reaction from her is part of what's happening to our trans community around the world, where automatically critics go to hyperbole and blow things totally out of context and out of the water in order to promote some kind of fear or some kind of resented backlash in there. And I think that Graham Norton handled it really well by saying, he even called on the Kardashians. He's like, we don't have to have a Kardashian have an opinion. That headline doesn't need to exist. Graham Norton having an opinion doesn't need to exist.
Right.
And that's kind of the context for what he's all saying there, which is exactly right. Just because you're famous doesn't mean we care. J.K. Rowling.
Well, I mean, we've covered J.K. Rowling on here numerous times and numerous offenses that she's made against the LGBTQ plus community. I find it almost funny now that we continue to talk about her, because I feel like we need to put her to rest. And her headlines, even though they keep coming up and popping up over and over again, and apparently there's somebody still buying her books because somehow she's getting published.
Yeah, it continues to happen, and it's really disheartening, because I was introduced to the series when I was in 3rd grade. And so many of my friends that were so into the series came out as queer. And there are certain times where she has been queer baiting in her stories. She's confirmed that Dumbledore is queer, and she continues to bash trans people specifically trans women, when there really is no reason for it. So guys, I'm just a girl playing dress up. And on testosterone. You know, we're just gonna do that too for fun, I guess. But comparing yourself to someone of that level, an Old Testament prophet, your ego has to be so large.
Yeah, and that's shocking.
Well, the only way to stop this is to A, quit buying her products, B, stop talking about her. The minute she's not in the press, the minute she doesn't have the attention, the minute she disappears. Well, she's going to have money. She has what she has. She's a multi-billionaire. But if you want her to disappear, don't pay attention to her.
And let's start paying attention to Evyn.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the voice that we need to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
And we'll do that after we queer up education.
There you go.
Here we go. Lack of official LGBTQ plus guidance could lead to legal troubles for Pennsylvania schools. Most school systems in Pennsylvania lack official guidelines on the education of gay, lesbian, transgender, and non-binary students, and the state's reporting system is not being used, records show. Without policies, districts and communities are increasingly clashing across the state as schools weigh the needs of students and parents and the rights of both groups. Policies can address everything from notification of the requested name and pronoun changes to accommodations and without them, to those accommodations and without them, advocates say they're risking the safety of young adults and exposing districts to federal discrimination lawsuits. In Bucks County, only 3 districts, Bristol, Penberry, and New Hope, Solberry, have policies related to gender expansive and transgender children and teens. Currently, there are no laws in the state governing public schools for policy for transgender students. There are, however, proposed pieces of legislation that could impact all districts if passed. One of the most prominent bills is the GOP-led HB 2813, referred to as the Parental Rights in Student Health Care Act, introduced in September and led by Representative Stephanie Borowitz and 18 other Republicans. The bill would implement changes for the 2023-24 school year. It seeks to amend school policies to prevent teaching sexual or gender identity to students from kindergarten through 5th grade. So there's a lot going on here, right? Obviously, we recognize this law as being a direct play from Governor DeSantis' law that passed. And my home state of Pennsylvania, oh, what are you doing up there, guys? The thing with Pennsylvania and its demographics, as I'm sure lots of people know, is we've got kind of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and then we've got a bunch of red in the middle. And that level of representation at the state level is how the Republicans are going to get this stuff passed if Democrats or if progressives don't stand up and, get there first, to make these proposals first.
Is Pennsylvania historically Republican or Democrat?
Oh, it definitely depends.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
purple.
Very purple.
Yeah.
And there's one of the most right-wing extremists running for governor in the country in Pennsylvania, and then we have Dr. Oz running for Senate,
Right.
and the things that are happening in Pennsylvania, which has it has a lot of deep history of Democratic roots, of course. Has been a state that has elected statewide senators, elected statewide governors who are Democrats. These movements in Pennsylvania are trying to pull it way to the right, and it is more of I would say a very central-leaning, has been a central-leaning state, which is why they've, again, through the primary process, have elected very right-wing, which is good for us. Let's hope that they are too extreme for the voters of Pennsylvania.
Well, and one of the reasons why school districts may not have this policy is because their school districts are run by elected officials. So it's up to each individual district to elect their board. Bucks County happens to be a fairly left-leaning county, which is why those school districts are probably the ones that have policies, whereas the rest of the state, they won't even take it up because we don't exist according to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
As a 30-year teacher now, a classroom teacher, I have never once instructed on being gay or on gender. I am a GSA sponsor, a safe space liaison. I've worked on every level, and never has this indoctrination been called to question. So I take offense for myself and for all other educators like me. They're trying to vilify us because it makes it easier to erase us, control us.
Yeah.
But we're not having it.
But it's also about power. I mean, we all know there's been a very broad sweep of Republicans voting Republicans just to get the base. We want to win. We have Herschel Walker, who's going to be nothing in the scheme of things, but we win the Senate. We win the numbers.
But this is what I wonder. Parental rights. Mm-hmm. Surely there are parents who are up in arms who want to protect their trans children, who want to protect anybody's trans child. Where are their rights being protected in these laws? Why are we assuming that parental rights mean
that all parents?
Right,
mean
exactly.
That.
So
right.
I think that they've done a great job at this public relations of parental rights, but really it's parental rights for a certain minority. Yeah. And I'm waiting for that chorus of parents who are not on board to raise their voices, because really they've been a little too silent for my liking.
Right. If I could piggyback off of what you said, that was because it's exactly that. It's painfully frustrating the way they try to fearmonger people. Mm-hmm. Because in all of my years in school, I have never once been sat down and talked about sexuality. I never was taught, no one taught me to be straight either. It was not, oh, here's what the sex you have to have. No, it wasn't that. It never was to begin with. And no one's ever saying we're going to sit down children, at all, children K through 5, and explain all of these things. It's the simplest things ever. It's the tiny things that matter too. It's just teaching them and instilling them that we don't hate these people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we have story time, not clearing time.
Exactly. So you're just sitting them down. Hey, this person might have 2 moms instead of a mom and a dad, and that's fine. That's
and most
all
of the time
it
the
is.
kids will go okay and walk away.
It's the sweetest thing ever. I've had incidents like that, or incidents like situations.
Caridad, I have a question. Being a longtime teacher, my mom is a retired teacher, so I'm going to ask you this. You know, with the laws that are coming down, you do not teach these things that they're trying to outlaw, but
don't learn them.
You are a resource for children and for students who need a person and a safe space to talk to. And under the guidelines of Don't Say Gay and some of these things that are coming through the state, you could lose your job over this.
But you know what's interesting and actually quite tragic? The kids aren't coming to talk to anybody.
No.
They've gone silent because they're also trying to protect us.
Wow.
And they know, but you know, how should I say this? We know what we know, and we do what we got to do. And there are ways to follow the law and still be advocates for the students who need them.
And do co-workers or co-teachers or whatever, do your teaching friends at your schools, do you silently discuss this, or do you?
Oh, we all discuss that. If we're friends, those people on staff who would not want to discuss it would not be considered a friend. So,
but I'm just saying you've come up with your own manners of which to talk around it.
Listen, we weren't ever doing it.
That's what they were doing
before. So if a student comes to talk to me, I'm protected in that I am the safe space liaison, and I work directly with safe schools, and I have a little bit of leeway in what I can talk about, and I know when to make the jump to the counselor, the trust counselor. So I'm able to navigate that in a fairly easy way. But that's something that's easy for me. I've been teaching rhetoric for 30 years, so I know how to use language in a way that is both effective and that protects me. But not everyone is versed in that way, so it silences them, and it's silencing the kids.
Well, no, what my point was, you have you have a network of teachers that you're all on the same level with your, like you said, we know how to navigate the situation to help.
They know whether they do or not, or whether they have the courage or not to do so. And everybody's situation is different. I can't, when they come after your job, after your livelihood, it is the scariest thing possible. So I can't really judge a beginning teacher who may be queer, but has gone quiet because she's, living in one of the most expensive cities in the country, and she can't really afford to lose her job. I do know there's a lot of fear. I do know there's a lot of silence. And I do know that my kids were a lot more eager to come hang out with me at lunch a few years ago than they are now.
Well, thank you for what you do. It's very important.
With that, I'm going to queer up lesbian culture.
Again?
Wait. Idaho man arrested after attempting to run over women vandalizing Pride Center. Matthew Lehigh, who was arrested Wednesday after allegedly driving his vehicle at 2 women and yelling a homophobic slur, will face at least 1 new charge after he admitted to taking several actions targeting the LGBTQ+ community. Lehigh, 31, was charged with felony arson Friday for allegedly burning a pride flag in the north end of Boise. Ada County Deputy Prosecutor Michael Guy said in an arraignment that the culprit has also admitted to stealing various pride flags in the North End neighborhood and breaking a window at an LGBTQ+ community center. He added, quote, "He has the behavior that is increasingly agitated, increasingly aggressive, and culminated in the events that led to his arrest. It was the second reported incident of him yelling the homophobic slur and driving his vehicle towards someone. Police had been searching for him since Saturday. Boise police cannot pursue a hate crime case in an incident targeting the LGBTQ+ community. Idaho's malicious harassment statute, commonly known as the hate crime law, refers to malicious harassment as quote, the intent to intimidate or harass another person because of that person's race, color, religion, ancestry, or national origin. The definition excludes sexual orientation or gender identity. In an arraignment Friday, Ada County Magistrate Judge Kira Lynn Dale signed a non-contact order to prevent Lehigh from coming into contact with the couple whose pride flag was burned on their property. Wow. I can't imagine that as a human being, your protection is so precarious under a law that you would be deemed non-protectable because of your gender, your sexual orientation, any particular reason. So the fact that it's not written also underscores what we were talking about earlier, the power of language. Because many people now with, for example, the Don't Say Gay bill, where they're like, oh, it's only kindergarten to third grade. Oh, no, but it's not, because there's such ambiguity written into the language that it opens it up, right, for various interpretations. So the fact that this was left off, and the listing of the things that it does protect was pretty extensive, right? It's almost like they specifically carved out a space not to include us. So highly problematic.
We are talking about rural area such as Idaho. I grew up outside of St. Louis in a very rural area. So, you know, gays don't exist in the country. Well, shock, we do. For many years, I helped run the gay rodeo here in Fort Lauderdale. And, you know, we exist everywhere. And that was the reason for the rodeo. So hopefully, you know, in Idaho, there's somebody fighting for that presence and that appearance. But we have to do it cautiously because you don't want anyone to get hurt. You just want them to be heard and to be recognized.
I also wonder that if you're trying to run someone over, can't we have like attempted murder?
Isn't that an arrestable offense in itself?
Yeah.
Not in Florida. They just made that okay to run your car through a crowd who's protesting. Florida. That just happened in the last legislation session.
Lovely.
The elevation of hate speech in the United States, I mean, is at a fever pitch. So if we think, you know, if we look at the news yesterday, we saw the former president, the founder and CEO of the largest company, one of the largest companies in the world, Elon Musk, and the biggest, most successful rapper, Kanye West, spouting anti-Semitic rhetoric. So where do you find that the LGBTQ community is going to play out in this world that we're living in? We're getting the attack, and it's out in the open. It's not they're standing behind a veil saying these tropes. They're using hate speech against the president, former president, excuse me. Thankfully, former president used the N-word in one of his speeches, saying he was referring to nuclear code, nuclear weapons, which is again, a racist, slander to throw out there. So, I mean, I fear for our community because you see these attacks are coming because they're being elevated by leaders that have a platform.
And they're wrapped in the flag and liberty.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the scariest thing that I've even heard them say, oh, and if Marco Rubio, and if you attempt to say anything, they call you a bigot.
Yeah.
Well, you are. Yeah. Oh, again, this is the rhetoric. This is what the Nazis did, guys, better than anybody. They repeated propaganda again and again and again until people started to believe it. And we're seeing it happen. And I'm sorry, I don't see the outrage. I don't see it.
Well, that's one of the important things. Years ago, there was a traveling tour talking about the Nazi persecution of gays and gays and lesbians during World War II, and the business model, for lack of better words, the plans that they made to destroy the community. And as much as I love our community, we tend to look past last week, and after that we have no memory.
Yes.
That's where TV shows like this become important, or stations, because we can bring and discuss all those things. And I've always been a very big fan of the Stonewall Library and other gay and lesbian libraries, because we talk about our history, we talk about the pain we went through, we survived all these things. We need to stay focused on it, and that's where your generation comes into play, where we try so desperately to reach out and remind everybody that while you have the right to hold hands walking down Wilton Manors with your latest boo for now,
other people didn't.
Other people didn't. I didn't. Most of us at the table at some point couldn't. So we need to remember that, and it's a great, thank you for talking about the history, because we have to remember our history, and we have to look back on our history at what worked to kill that, what worked to solve that, what worked, who did we have to talk to, who did we have to partner with.
And organize.
And organize with.
Yeah, it's an incredibly interesting like sort of dichotomy. Or in one area you have privilege that other people didn't, and in other areas you don't. And it's so interesting to try and figure your way out through that, because other people are telling you how privileged you are, and you're still afraid of that being stripped away.
And at the same point, we have to remind ourselves that for all the wealth that we've created in the last few years with this huge population, this huge expanse of the community of the haves, the have-nots have suffered even more so. And the patterns of the abuse have just gotten greater, all in the name of hate and all in the name of fear.
Well, and it's that fear that drives someone like the guy in this story to attempt to run over people. He's afraid of the LGBTQ community changing the space that he always has had the power in, and that's just
what's the myth?
incredibly
If you hate
sad.
yourself, if you hate yourself as a gay man, you might act out as the straightest man in the world who hates.
I was just thinking that because, really, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of flags he's picking up. What is he doing with the flags? Maybe he's like making a quilt. I don't know, that he does silently, because it sounds like a lot of energy and a lot of time to do something for a community that's invisible to you, right? It just
like where do you just find that much hate in your heart for someone?
Well,
That's
I think he does protest too much.
Good conversation, but also a scary world.
Scary,
again.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So-
so we have to work harder.
Yeah.
But for now, we're going to queer up the gay culture. LGBTQ plus business owners. Whoops.
And nonprofits in San Diego's Hillcrest area fight historic designation. Have a video?
San Diego's planning department is preparing to update Hillcrest's zoning to allow for more high-density housing. Alongside that process, the city is also proposing an LGBTQ historical district, which would put restrictions on changing or redeveloping the buildings in the neighborhood's core. Ryan Bedrosian owns Rich's nightclub in Hillcrest and is president of the Hillcrest Business Association. He told the city's planning commission last week that historic preservation should not come at the expense of allowing the neighborhood to grow and change.
San Diego LGBTQ plus communities are fighting.
And businesses and nonprofits are fighting a city proposal to create an historic LGBTQ plus district in Hillcrest, saying the district would hold back the neighborhood's growth and development. The proposed historic district would cover more than 24 properties surrounding the intersection of 5th and University Avenues. City of San Diego Planning Department staff detailed the proposed district during a presentation last Thursday on a broader plan to rezone much of Hillcrest to allow more high-density housing. Kelly Stanko, Deputy Director of Planning Department, said, quote, "A city survey found that the district is significant and eligible for a designation as a historic district due to its architecture as the historic commercial core of Hillcrest and for its association with the LGBTQ plus community, containing a concentration of buildings which house LGBTQ plus businesses and organizations," end quote. Preservationists say historic districts are an effective way to honor and memorialize both buildings and the history they contain, but the representatives from the San Diego Pride, the San Diego LGBTQ Community Center, the Hillcrest Business Association, and several gay bar owners all gave comments in opposition to the historic proposal, saying it would come at the expense of building much-needed housing at the neighborhood's core. It's an interesting story.
Interesting how even queer people themselves are afraid of changing and moving forward.
Well, it's not. I don't
how
think
would
it's
you put
necessarily
that?
changing. It's the whole concept that, from the business community's perspective, the gay businesses,
Right.
you know, the higher density makes housing more expensive.
Oh, right. It brings in more traffic.
And, you know, well, it brings in more traffic per se, but it also eliminates housing for employees that may not be making high salaries.
This topic has been on the table in the city of Hollywood. We have a historic downtown. I live in a historic neighborhood. So there's a lot of battle of building and development in Hollywood. And as the LGBTQ plus council, as it came to our table to kind of take a position on it, we kind of fell into the trap of this story, which was that if I was an LGBTQ business owner on the beach in Hollywood Beach, I might be really happy that you're going to build a high rise and bring 500 new people with their money to spend in my business. But if I live in a small apartment building that is mom and pop owned, and related group or another big developer wants to come in and tear all those down and build $1 million plus condos, that might not be so good for us. Mm-hmm. But somebody's going to benefit and someone is going to get hurt, and it's hard to find the medium where that fits.
So here's the issue with, in my opinion, all of South Florida, and probably what's going on here as well. There is no holistic approach to development. And I'm going to come down on the side of the preservationists with this. You can do what it is that needs to be done, but you've got to look at not just where the housing is, you have to look at how you're getting people around. Mm-hmm. Are there roads? Are there public sources of transportation? The city of Munich in Germany used to have in its downtown core a traffic corridor. And they blocked it off and made it pedestrian. Mm-hmm. And of course, they all fought it back, and they said, no, this is going to ruin downtown. What did it do on the other hand? No, made it a brilliantly booming center of the city for pedestrians and for businesses, mm-hmm. because they paid attention to transportation. They paid attention to how transportation connects people to this area and where the housing is. We are very short-sighted in the United States, especially here in South Florida, when it comes to designing
city planning.
There is no city planning. It goes for the highest bidder. I live in Miami, and downtown Miami is already a nightmare to get around. And there's 2 new huge high-rises going up right now. And I wonder, where are these cars going to go? And besides, they don't have the infrastructure available for the people coming in, which makes one of the most hostile cities in the world even more hostile, because nothing has been planned out. So you're absolutely correct. But how do we argue on behalf of planning and a slower, perhaps, progression in the face of all the money that's being thrown at us? And by the way, most of those buildings are not owned by American owners or people who live in Florida. Mm-hmm. They're owned by foreign interests. So, and why is that significant? Because they don't care. They make the building, they take their money, they leave, they're not part of the community. So we should also be wondering who exactly is building in these communities and who's going to stay behind to care for them.
And we have to find that balance so that when the small businesses, not the malls and not the major retailers, come into place, that it's affordable. I mean, how many buildings are here in South Florida with street level storefronts that are $500 a square foot and they're less than 100 square feet? So how can a mom and pop generate that kind of income on such a small footprint to support?
Or a mom and mom, or a pop and pop.
Okay. Good point. But I mean, it's got to come down to the reality of, to support the community, you have to have a place for everybody in there, and not just those that have, and be damned to everybody else.
Right. Yeah, an example of that community. Here we go. Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting at our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out Television Studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
Hello, my name is Peter Basuito, also known as My Big Funny Peter. I'm an internationally known comedian and entertainer, and the Sunshine Cathedral is definitely my queer church.
We finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News, let's queer up the USA View. From LGBTQ plus news partner Los Angeles Blade and writer Brody Levesque. Family-friendly queer Halloween party causes homophobic backlash in California town. A Halloween event, Boo Bash, billed as the queerest free Halloween party for youth and families, has one North San Diego County school district in an uproar. The controversy started less than a month when a flyer advertising the event described as a, quote, spooky block-style party, end quote, was posted to the Encinas Union School District's webpage. The flyer was pulled down, but a group of conservative parents, anti-LGBTQ plus activists, and a couple of candidates running for seats on the school board protested Tuesday, including Jolene Burtz. She said, quote, "It is very clear what the agenda is. It is not a family-friendly event, and the district is lying to our children, and these are our children," end quote. You can read more at losangelesblade.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up education. From LGBTQ plus news partner Pink News and writer Amelia Hansford. Comedian trolls school board with funny speech after pride flag banning.
I'm here today because a second grade teacher thought it was appropriate to teach my child about pronouns. I was taught that there were only 2 pronouns, but thanks to the woke left, there are now 100 pronouns. I confronted the teacher and said, in our house, there are only 2 pronouns and that they need to respect our beliefs. As a patriot, I love freedom of speech. Who loves freedom of speech? You know, I love freedom of speech, except when it comes to pride flags in schools, teaching history. There's a whole list of books I want to ban from the school library. I want to ban kneeling at football games. The point is we need to protect our children, okay? Which is why we need more security in our schools. We need cops patrolling the hallway.
Comedian Walter Masterson attended a board meeting for the Connecticut School District on October 11th, where he parodied common Republican viewpoints. The board found itself under fire from pro-LGBTQ plus activists after a teacher from the high school was reprimanded for refusing to take down a Progress Pride flag in her classroom. Masterson told committee members that he loved freedom of speech, quote, except when it comes to pride flags in schools, end quote. Masterson posted the hilarious clip on October 13th on Twitter. Several users in the comments pointed out that the parody might have been a bit too subtle for some of the audience members, providing that nothing is too outlandish for Republicans. Read more at pinknews.co.uk.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up entertainment. From LGBTQ plus news partner Hotspots Magazine and writer Troy Malice. Elvira said Madonna hit on her girlfriend after coming out. TikTok goes viral. Well, at least someone isn't surprised about Madonna's recent TikTok where the singer may or may not have come out. When Elvira, the persona created by actor and comedian Cassandra Pearson, heard about it, she had an additional juicy tidbit to add. She said she wasn't surprised to hear Madonna might have come out. Peterson added the singer hit on Peterson's girlfriend in the past, trying to hire her as a trainer with an implied something more. TMZ tweeted a post of Peterson acknowledging the fact it might have taken Madonna a while to come out, but says folks should come out whenever is comfortable for them. The post attracted numerous mixed comments on Twitter. Read more at hotspotsmagazine.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up lesbian culture. From LGBTQ plus news partner Them and writer Abby Montiel. Jenna Lyons becomes first lesbian New York housewife. The Real Housewives universe just got a little queerer. Bravo recently unveiled the cast of its upcoming reboot of Real Housewives of New York City, including famed designer Jenna Lyons. Lyons, who served as president and executive creative director of J. Crew, is queer. Lyons was famously outed at 43 years old in 2011 when the New York Post published an article about her dating a woman. The designer is making history as the first openly queer housewife in New York City. Just last year, Real Housewives of Miami star Julia Lemigova and her wife, Russian tennis star Martina Navratilova, made history as the first same-sex couple to be featured on a Real Housewives show. Read more at them.us.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up drag culture. From LGBTQ plus news partner Hotspots Magazine and writer Troy Malice. Cast revealed for Canada's Drag Race, Canada vs. the World. The full cast list for Canada's Drag Race, Canada vs. the World was announced on Monday, bringing 9 international queens back to compete for the title of Queen of the Motherpucker World. For Canada vs. the World, 4 Canadian queens comprising of Kendall Jenner, Stephanie Prince, Rita Baga, and Season 2 winner Isis Couture will battle against 5 of the international counterparts, Victoria Scone and Vanity Milan from UK, Silky Nutmeg Ganache and Raja O'Hara from the United States, and Anita Riglet from Canada. Canada's Drag Race judge Brooklyn Heights, Brad Goreski, and Tracy Melchor will serve on the judging panel. Viewers can surely expect plenty of interqueen politicking of RuPaul's Drag Race UK versus the World as the inspiration for this show. Read more at hotspotsmagazine.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up education. From LGBTQ plus news partner LGBTQ Nation and writer John Russell. Homophobic bullying in California shown in teens' viral TikTok. Well, that didn't really sound the way it was supposed to, so we'll tell you more about it. Earlier this month, 18-year-old Landon Jones posted the video, which shows 2 separate instances of anti-gay bullying caught on camera. One incident shows a group of young men surrounding his car in the parking lot of a Starbucks, and one of them saying, quote, "This fucking faggot," end quote. The second incident shows a young man ringing the doorbell at night asking whether London lives there. When Landon's father asks why, the young man shouts as he runs off, "Someone said to come up here because he's a faggot." In the post, Landon says, quote, "I'm sick of being silent about it, so I spoke up finally." You can read more at lgbtqnation.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Now let's queer up education. From LGBTQ plus news partner Pink News and writer Amelia Hansford. New Jersey school attempts to cancel the Prom play over LGBTQ plus themes. Community fights back. Officials at Cedar Grove High School in Essex County, New Jersey, plan to cancel a student production of The Prom, which sees a lesbian student try to bring her same-sex date to a school prom, but were forced to backtrack after opposition from the community. The district superintendent, Anthony Grossos, told those concerned in a statement issued on October 14th that the play would not be canceled, but that students would perform a high school edition of the play. The Prom actor Josh Lehman shared a statement on social media saying that the cancellation was infuriating and deeply homophobic, and that there is, quote, "nothing inappropriate in or about the show." Read more at pinknews.co.uk.
In LGBTQ plus 1 minute news, let's queer up LGBTQ plus civil rights. From LGBTQ plus news partner Spectrum Local News and writer Nick Reisman. New York Governor Hochul signs bill to protect LGBTQ plus seniors. A nearly 60-year-old law is getting an update that is meant to benefit older New Yorkers in the LGBTQ plus communities. Governor Kathy Hochul on Monday signed a bill that will expand a program for older New Yorkers to provide funding and services based on greatest social need that includes barriers or isolation created by racial and ethnic status, as well as sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, and HIV status. Under the current law, the state does not specifically include older LGBTQ plus adults in its guidance. The measure approved by Hochul will require the guidance to be updated under the state's administration of it. Read more at spectrumlocalnews.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up Road to Stonewall. From LGBTQ plus news partner Washington Blade. DC community mourns the loss of iconic lesbian activist Kathleen Joan DeBold. Kathleen Joan DeBold, celebrated DC LGBTQ activist, died suddenly on October 9, 2022, in Ocean City, Maryland, at age 66, according to an obituary released by family and friends. She worked for the Entomological Society of America and was the first female apiary inspector in the state of Maryland, according to the statement. She joined the Peace Corps in 1982, where she was stationed in the Central African Republic for 3 years to teach beekeeping. Returning to the United States in 1989, DeBold began her work as an LGBTQ activist. She worked at the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund, an organization dedicated to electing openly LGBTQ candidates to political office. Donations in her memory may be made to Tremendous Maryland or Sinister Wisdom. Read more at washingtonblade.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up the worldview. From LGBTQ plus news partner Hotspots magazine and writer Troy Malice. Gay penguins in the UK have a gender reveal party for their youngest chick. Famed gay penguins in the United Kingdom had a gender reveal for the penguin chick the loving couple fostered this year. The partnered Humboldt penguins, named Diego and Zorro, live at the Oceanarium in Bournemouth and fostered the chick Ponyo since its birth on May 12th at the aquarium. The happy couple, along with the newly appointed penguin keeper Melissa Mudge, used a hunk of ice in the shape of a heart and etched it with the letter G to reveal that Ponyo is a girl. Staff at the Oceanarium noticed sparks between foster parents Diego and Zorro as early as 2017. It has since grown into a strong and lasting relationship. For more, read hotspotsmagazine.com. So that's tonight's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories are about our community and deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Happening On Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Jeff Oliverio, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Evyn Almanzar, Dr. Tai Houser, Caridad Moro-Gronlier, and Buddy Frey. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night.
Yes.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus